So, you want to solo a dungeon in Destiny 2. Maybe it's because you don't have a group to play with, or just because you want the fancy emblem that comes with it. But where do you start? Well, I am confident that anybody in this game can solo a dungeon. It just takes the right mindset and approach. I don't care who you are, I don't care how long ago you started playing, you can do it. So today, we'll be starting with the Shattered Throne dungeon, as it was the first one released, and in my opinion, the easiest. A few things to note first. 1. I'm going to show you how to solo this, but I am not going to baby you. Experiment. If something I say doesn't personally work for you, try something else. Look at your armor, look at your weapons, your mods, everything. I don't know what each one of you have. So, to get the best effect for everybody, you need to follow these general rules that I'm going to provide, and go from there. Look, you need to think for yourself. This is important in doing in-game content anywhere, and you can't just slap on a build and not think. 2. You do not have to solo this dungeon flawlessly to get the emblem. The other ones you do, but not Shattered Throne. Also, there are currently no rally banner points, so if you want ammo in the Shattered Throne, you're gonna have to get it to spawn off an enemy. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. First things first, loadouts. If you aren't making use of particle deconstruction, you are literally just handicapping yourself. It's not required whatsoever, but the only reason not to use it is for pride, or if the situation calls for a different loadout where a fusion rifle isn't useful. So, consider slapping that on if you haven't already. For those unfamiliar, particle deconstruction is a mod on your seasonal artifact that slots into your class item. The same will go for any similar seasonal mods in the future seasons. There's always something that is good. As for general builds, anything that increases your survivability is also good. Recovery or resilience mods, damage resistance mods, charged with light, combat mods, etc. Anything else is a bonus. Definitely make use of ammo finder mods on your helmet. They stack so you can rock 2 of the same one. For your weapons, if you have, minor, major, boss, or taken spec, go ahead and slap those on. Otherwise, just pull whatever else you got that might help. Now, for your classes, if you are a Warlock, Bottom Tree Voidwalker with Devour is a godsend. Fully healing you on kills. Pair it with something like Controverse Holds and it's even better. Well of Radiance is also great, or even Stasis, whatever subclass will keep you alive the longest. It does not matter which one, whatever you are best with. Hunters, Stasis or Night Stalker is very good for crowd control and invisibility. Like I said, use what's easiest for you. And Titans, you've got a couple options. Sunbreaker or Behemoth would probably be my first 2 choices. Behemoth for the crowd control potential, or Sunbreaker for the high ability uptime with things like Hallowfire Heart. But if you also wanted to go the Sentinel route or Striker route, there are plenty of options there. Just take a look at all of your exotic weapons and armor you have, and make the right call for you. Do you only have a few pieces? Well, try to work around those. It's the first step towards crafting a build. Now for the first encounter. The opening to the Shattered Throne is very simple. The only thing you really need to worry about is crowd control and staying alive. To complete the encounter, you move from place to place, killing enemies and a mini-boss. Once all those enemies are dead, a symbol will appear next to you that tells you where to go next. That's it. That's the whole first encounter. For example, when you start the dungeon, just go straight. You'll eventually come across a group of enemies and like a knight mini-boss. Kill them all, and one of the symbols will appear. In my case, it was the Infinity Snake symbol. So, I would then find my way to it, kill all the enemies there, and repeat the process. I'm going to put a map on screen that you can use to kind of visualize this. You can get from anywhere to any point you need to at any time. Just look around. The only thing that proves a threat in this area is potentially snipers and impatience. I'm assuming this is your first solo dungeon attempt, so take it slow and learn the area. Once you have done this for each area, the final symbol will take you back to the start, where upon killing the enemies, you will have completed the encounter. Congratulations! Now, jump down this pit to proceed, but watch the fall. It is a very long drop and could easily kill you if you're not careful. This next section is just full of enemies, no mechanics. If you want to take it slow, you can swap to a scout rifle or some other long-range weapon. We have taken Minotaurs, Captains, Snipers, Phalanxes, Knights, and getting too close could be dangerous if you don't have a very aggressive loadout. So, like I said, take it slow, don't jump down or run ahead if you don't have to, use your height advantage, speedrun it after you've soloed this once. Okay, once you've cleared out all these enemies here, you'll come across a vast hallway-esque room. I usually just chill with a scout rifle or a sniper to take out the knights before moving in. Their fire attacks can be super annoying, so just go back and forth to the left and right of the doorway. Be mindful of the hobgoblins as well. Phalanxes shouldn't be an issue unless you push up too fast. Feel free to use the far left and far right sides of the room to push as needed. You don't have to go right through the middle. After you've cleared out the massive hallway, go to the end and take a left. Welcome to Anor Londo. Literally, if you've played Dark Souls, this is the exact same thing. Massive set of rafters that's easy to fall off of. Your only goal in this room is to make it to the left end of the room. The catch, however, is that taken ogres will spawn in certain areas to try and kill you or knock you off. Scout rifles, snipers, and linear fusions would be my go-to here. Anything with long-range damage, and just slowly kill one ogre at a time. If there aren't any ogres left, push up and watch for the sound of them spawning. Once you hear it, immediately fall back to start killing them. If you're further enough away, they won't shoot at you, but once you get too close and they do shoot at you, they will send you flying. If you're having trouble with the platforming itself, I would say maybe try jumping at an angle to the rafters to give yourself enough room to recover, but there isn't really much else I can say about that, just don't fall. Once you've made it to the end, you'll be greeted with the Thrallway. This part is really easy, but there are a few things to note. Your jump ability is disabled, and your health regen is disabled too, so you move slowly. If you just want to make it through, hug the left wall and walk to the end. That's it. Just a bunch of infinitely spawning Shadow Thrall chasing you through a hallway. Otherwise, you can stay here and try to refill on ammo because we have a boss fight coming up soon. After you exit the Thrallway, you have a sort of platforming section with a few enemies. Nothing crazy, just make it to the other side at the right over here. But we have the first boss of the dungeon right after, so start saving some ammo and supers. Okay, so this boss is technically the hardest part of the dungeon, but it really isn't that difficult either. It just may take you a bit to get used to. So first off, let's start with the mechanics. The boss is a big ogre that sits in the middle of the room, but surprise, he's immune, so we can't hurt him. So what do? Well, there are 4 void-shielded wizards in the room, at the north, south, east, and west. Killing one of these wizards will drop an orb that you can pick up called Petitioner's Mark. This buff lasts for 45 seconds before expiring. You need to kill all 4 wizards and take their buff to turn it into the Petitioner's Burden buff, which you can dunk into one of 4 platforms to start the damage phase. A few things to note. The Petitioner's Mark buff refreshes to 45 seconds each time you pick up another stack, meaning you technically have 3 minutes to kill all 4 wizards. Also, you can't dunk the Burden at the same platform twice, so if you have to do more than one damage phase, you'll need to go somewhere else. Now let's talk about loadouts. For weapons, fusion rifles and linear fusions are the go-to for this season. In future seasons, you can kind of use whatever you want, as long as you have something that can kind of quickly kill the wizards, or something void to break their shield, a rocket launcher, shotgun, whatever you want. In this instance, I used Telesto as my special weapon because it was void, which is what the wizards have, and then I had a tarantula on me that wasn't even that good or masterworked. However, you can use any fusion rifle you want. Null Composure would be a great pick here, as it's void and frees up an exotic slot. For your heavy, Threaded Needle is always great, but any linear fusion will do. Your primary weapon does not matter, whatever you like. As for your subclass, it's again kind of whatever keeps you alive the longest, but boss damage supers can be very useful too. Warlocks, I'd recommend Nova Bomb or Well, both for damage and survivability, which Nova Bomb's up to you, bottom tree for survivability, top tree for damage, yada yada yada. Hunters, I'd probably go either Night Stalker, probably top tree Night Stalker, bottom's fine too, for the invisibility and damage debuff from Tether, or Golden Gun for boss damage, with Celestial Nighthawk if you have it, of course. Titans, feel free to try Thunder Crash with Cuirass if you want, but I don't know how dangerous it would be getting that close to the boss, even with the Overshield. You know, I'm not sure what kind of stop damage he has. Otherwise, survivability supers, Bubble wouldn't be a bad choice. Now let's go over the flow of the encounter. So, drop down and hide behind one of these walls. I like to go to the left. The Ogre will be shooting at you the entire time, so you need to make sure you're always behind some sort of cover and he doesn't have an angle on you. There's a lot of cover in the boss room, but you kind of got to make it work a bit. A few seconds later, the wizards will begin to spawn and some enemies will spawn shortly after. I personally like to take these wizards out as quickly as possible and go clockwise from south to west to north to east. but if that's a bit too difficult, you can try weakening one wizard at a time. However, I think that has its own issues. If a wizard or some enemies catch you off guard, retreat and hide. You don't need to rush this as much as you think you do. Stay to the outskirts of the arena. Don't push in unless you have to, because it gets a little spicy in there. Now, rotate around the whole boss room, and once you have all 4 marks the petitioner, dunk the burden and start the damage phase. The damage phase lasts for 30 seconds. The boss will shoot at you, but the main threat is when he shoots Axion darts at you. Destroy them if need be, but sometimes you can kind of run away while hiding and still doing damage. And that's it. That's the whole boss fight. If you don't finish him in one damage phase, be ready for the wizards and everything to respawn and just rinse and repeat the process until he dies. The rest of the dungeon is mostly just basic fighting and platforming until we get to the final boss room. The only part you might have trouble with is this wall right here, where there's a few snipers and blight geysers that try to knock you off. Just be patient and pay attention to your surroundings, and you'll be fine. You can even jump over most of the blights if you wanted to. And that's about it. I'm not going to show the rest of the section leading up to this because it's incredibly linear. There's only one path. You're not going to get lost. I believe in you. You'll be fine. Now, we are at the finale, the final boss, Incaru. It's a pretty simple fight, with the small size of the arena making it a little bit more stressful. There are 3 large Axe Knights here, or Dark Blade Knights if you want to call them that. Killing them drops a buff similar to the one we saw in the Ogre boss, but it works slightly different. Having at least 1 stack of this buff lets you do damage, but having all 3 stacks increases the amount of damage you can do exponentially. If you can get all 3 stacks, the boss barely has any health at all. There's just a few caveats. Throughout the fight, including the beginning, Taken Scions will spawn. They reproduce like crazy and will mess you up if you don't deal with them. Additionally, if you take too long to start the damage phase, Incaru will conjure up a crystal at one of the sides of the room. This crystal makes the knights immune. You need to destroy the crystal to destroy their shields, but destroying the crystal also causes more scions to spawn. Now, the buff that you pick up from the knights is called Finite Thought, and it also has a rather negative side effect. Whenever the timer ends, which is 45 seconds, you die. No questions asked. To remove this buff, you need to go into this little platform in the center of the boss room and stand on it to cleanse. However, you need to make sure to not stand in it too early, or you'll prematurely end the damage phase and you have to rinse and repeat the whole process again. For your loadouts, I'd go with things like Nova Bomb, Thunder Crash, and Golden Gun to deal with the knights quickly, because they have a habit of teleporting away and waiting to deal with them sucks, but fusion rifles with particle deconstruction do just fine as well. If those don't work for you, go with survivability supers. For your weapons, a primary that can easily deal with groups of scions, and then fusion rifles and linear fusions. If you're doing this in a different season, whatever weapons you want, rockets, snipers, etc., it hardly matters. You could probably just go get Whisper of the Worm, and it would one phaser. This fight's not hard if you can get all 3 stacks of the buff. Also, the knights themselves aren't that much of a threat until they hit low health. They move very slowly, but if you deal enough damage to break their helmets, they'll start rushing at you every chance they get. This fight is all about balancing crowd control and boss damage. If you're having a hard time catching a breather, there's a few ways you can somewhat hide in the boss room. I forgot to record it and went through the dungeon twice, so I'm not going back through it again, but there is a pillar of like a awoken person right to your left when you spawn in. You can jump up on that pillar if you need to, but it's not completely safe, but it's better than being on the ground. Also, you can jump around the outskirts of the arena from the left and right side up to the back side if your mobility's high enough, or if you have glide or something. It's a little bit harder to jump down to the south side. It's a little bit too long of a distance, but you can work that. There's a couple pillars in the boss room you can use for cover. You've got options, but you kind of have to be careful because you can't just sit there forever. Okay, now, once you have Finite Thought times 3, you literally just hit Incaru in the face a bunch. You deal hundreds of thousands of damage with heavy weapons. Just make sure you don't die during the damage phase. If you can't kill her in one phase, just rinse and repeat. Be careful, be patient. Impatience will kill you. And that's everything with Shattered Throne. As you can see, I did this boss fight in a rush in just over a minute. It's like a minute 20 seconds or something like that. I'll have it playing on repeat in the background. And congratulations on your first solo clear, and enjoy your sweet, sweet new emblem. But now that you have a taste, it's not enough, is it? I'll see you beautiful people next time in Pit of Heresy. Have a good one.